What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and we need to talk about a problem. A big problem. Probably one of the main cancers that's growing inside gaming. You'll notice I'm carrying a package right now. This is something I got from Wood from Beat 'em Ups. He's a fellow YouTuber and a good buddy of mine. He sent it to me because this is probably one of the most broken games of all time, especially one on modern consoles. This is WWE 2K18 on the Nintendo Switch. Even if you're not into wrestling or Nintendo, this is a very important project that we need to talk about. It doesn't function. This thing is from the ground up broken. Now, not only is it broken, in my opinion, they scalped it. Now, the reason I say that is, so I spent all night trying to play it, and notice I'm using the word trying. As you can see by this gameplay, the frame rate is terrible, the crowd is super weird looking, but most importantly, they actually removed about 90% of the AI. If you play the Nintendo Switch version, the enemies are dumber. They'll actually get stuck on corners or not know how to get back into the arena. This isn't even a real game in my opinion. It doesn't actually constitute a finished product, so therefore, I'm not even going to act like it's something you should buy. It's a ripoff. To its very core, it was made and released to get money from people who are too dumb to be able to do the research. They shoved it out knowing it was unfinished. Now, let's rewind a tiny bit and kind of talk about this problem starting with early 2016. Let's look at No Man's Sky. This is a topic that I find so interesting because No Man's Sky was so obviously undone. So many of the core ideas that they themselves were bragging about, from multiplayer to base building, weren't in the game at release. But they ended up adding later on. Now, the reason I think that's so important to really talk about is the fact that it shows that so many of these developers now are being bound by contracts. They have this giant vision and all these ideas, and sometimes even a plan to execute on these ideas, but no way to get them done in time. That's because these giant companies more and more are absolutely needed to fund your project in order to print the discs, put out commercials, and advertise your game the way it actually sells. But the problem is, once you sign that contract, they choose the release date. And getting a good release date can often mean the difference between if your game lives or dies. That means you have to stick by it. I feel like that there's this also underlying current where I hate to ever blame game developers for anything, but I definitely think that there's this new idea that you can ship something broken and patch it later. A lot of times people are even willing to defend it. This is total insanity, but just a couple days ago, I actually had a person yelling at me on Twitter because I said that Star Wars Battlefront 2 was a pay-to-win mess. And they actually said, "You're actually insulting the launch version. The current version of Battlefront 2 is a masterpiece." Now, this really blew my mind. This person was calling me wrong for saying that the game was a pay-to-win mess, when for a long time it was, just because it's been updated to be fixed. This is how a lot of game developers see their audiences, I think. They think, okay, I can release a game that's totally undone in a totally broken state, and people are probably going to buy it and defend it. People are going to brag to their friends as long as we fix it down the line. Now, I'm not saying that patches are always online or negative. In fact, I'd actually say that that's probably one of the biggest benefits of modern gaming. Something that came out broken back in the day was unrepairable. If you came out with just a total shot in the dark, say that Silent Hill 1 had a game-breaking bug that would actually delete your save file. There'd be no way to fix it. That game would have bombed and we wouldn't have gotten the rest of the series, just because of one tiny glitch. Well, in modern gaming, patches can fix stuff like that, and totally for free. So that's a great benefit. But now, everybody's leaning on this option more and more. A lot of times they're going, okay, we're coming up on Christmas and we need a game out. Release it in an unfinished state and we'll fix it later. I feel like a perfect example of this is unfortunately PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. This game is arguably, it's a bit of a dumpster fire. The frame rate sucks. Load times are really weird. When you're skydiving into environments, a lot of times you'll see just a house appear and you walk inside and you have to wait an additional 30 seconds for guns to show up. It's something that, in my opinion, fundamentally destroys the flow of the game. Even if it is fun, on Xbox One and Xbox One X, it's not functioning. But they had to get it out. Microsoft is paying the bills and they said, yep, Christmas is coming up in 2 weeks, which means that's got to be somewhere on store shelves. This does bring me to an aspect of gaming that a lot of people don't really talk about. Now, I have to get a little bit technical here and talk a little bit about programming, but I promise I'm going to make this as easy to understand as possible. Making games is difficult because when you really break it down, you're making games on a computer that later on you're going to be putting onto a console. As much as the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch are sort of like computers that you can play, they also have some very specific specifications. If you do something wrong on it, it can break them down. So there's always this issue of if you make a game for computers and then bring it over to a console. That's probably a major aspect of why PUBG is just destroyed on consoles, is the fact that it wasn't even really out of early access on PC, and now they're trying to take this incomplete code from the PC version, recompile it, and throw it onto a console, which is very, very different. In a way, this sort of reminds me of the legendary unreleased version of Half-Life on Dreamcast. This was very near completion, and suddenly the entire team got closed down. Valve came in and said, the Dreamcast is a failure, don't bother finishing it. So they actually canned this project when it was 95% complete. Fans managed to finish this and put it on a disc, as you can see here, and this is actually the only way I've ever beaten Half-Life. The original Half-Life, I only played the Dreamcast version. But here's the thing. People a lot of times forget the fact that the Dreamcast was a computer. It had a disk drive, it's got a modem, but most importantly, it runs on Windows. This, at its very heart, is a PC. Now, a lot of these new consoles are sort of the same because they're built with PC hardware, but they still use very different programming. The interface and stuff, the UI, so much of that is based on specific engines, which leads to some major complications when you're trying to bring a giant project over and you don't quite know what you're doing. PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds runs on, I believe, Unreal, and that's great. That's an engine that creates some very photorealistic graphics and can make it where you can literally zoom your sniper rifle in on specific leaves of a tree, and it's this giant, gorgeous planet. But if that's only made to run on a certain type of graphics card, and then you try and bring it over to something that's less powerful or not the same as your PC, the final result is going to be something that's glitchy with bad load times and, unfortunately, incredibly not fun to play. When it really comes down to it, this is still a business, and I feel like that's part of the cancer that's growing within the gaming industry is the investors are taking over more and more. The artists behind WWE probably wanted this to be the best. Obviously, they were so excited that they were getting a bunch of the professional wrestlers themselves to help advertise it. That's because, at the end of the day, they love wrestling. They wanted to make something good, but this is trash. Look at this. There's even a custom character somebody made called Unplayable Garbage. And unfortunately, that sums it up. In this business, you have to be able to create art that is fun, interactive, and bold. But you also have to do something that can be sold. It has to be put on store shelves, it has to have a name that people recognize, and it has to keep people happy enough that they'll actually talk about it and get that word of mouth sales. I feel like we're entering an era where more and more it's all about what you can sell than how good it is. It's all about, okay, can I make a bright, flashy trailer for No Man's Sky and sell 5 million copies? Or can I make a sweet little indie game like Human Fall Flat that'll make you laugh until you have tears on your face, but unfortunately only sells 200,000 copies? Back and forth, these studios need to tread that line. An indie project that'll push the edge, and then of course go back and do the mainstream project. Star Wars Battlefront 2 needs to exist, that way they can make a cool indie project like A Way Out. These companies, I can tell, want to try and make profit by doing a little bit of everything, but they just keep forcing and rushing projects that need to be canceled or delayed. But the problem is, nobody is willing to delay stuff anymore. Another 6 months, and this could have been cool. Another 3 months, and it may have been playable. But right now, they don't care about that. This is the sad reality of current games. Video games have become a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the more profit that's on the line, the more people are willing to do things that are probably considered evil. Think about all the movies that come out that are very clearly just made for a profit. The Dark Tower movie was made simply because they knew that they could put asses in seats. There was no love, there was no passion. That was people who were trying to just get as many dollars as they can. And now, that's kind of happening in video games. Hopefully this trend slows down, and you know what? I'm going to do my best as one YouTuber to try and push back against the darkness. Which sounds really dramatic, and I probably should edit that out. Oh well, I'll leave it in. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Whew. Alright, well, time to throw this away. Oh, hey! I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.